What's up, y'all? This is Lou, and today we're going to discuss privatization, at least where it's concerned with private schools. Um, I received a public school education growing up in the state of Florida, back when Florida used to be very highly ranked in education. Um, I really didn't like school. I wasn't that type of kid, despite the fact that I had what could be described as intellectual aptitude. Um, my mother tells stories of me being bored with curriculum and cutting up because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I think there was a little more to it than that. Coming from a broken home didn't help. But um, the fact of the matter is that looking back, I value the education that I received. And as I mentioned in the previous video about pro life child hunger, my school actually had a good lunch program down in Florida. At least in the city that I was in, they put a lot of resources into the public school. Now, I didn't qualify for free lunch despite only having one parent and that parent having to work two jobs, which seemed weird, but it was fairly inexpensive and the lunches were of decent quality. Whereas when I went to the Keys after Hurricane Andrew, where we lost our home, that was a whole other story. But so people of a certain political ilk in this country are doing everything they can to dismantle public education, from defunding to now attacking school boards to uh, just out and out lying about what's going on. I mean, we know about CRT and trans agenda and grooming, this, that, and the other thing. So the idealistic scenario, according to them, is that everything's going to be privatized and we're going to have private schools and private schools are better. First of all, that's not always true. You can look up for yourself how well charter schools do compared to public schools. That is often being misrepresented. It's not as cut and dry as it may seem. And in terms of private schools, so when I hear privatization, what I hear is essentially an age-old tactic used by segregationists. What I hear is, I want my kids to go to the schools that I want, and those schools are going to be as good of a quality as I can afford. I don't want your kids going to that school if you can't afford what I can afford. That's what I hear when I hear about school privatization. So what is the argument against that? The argument against that is usually voucher programs. No, everybody will get vouchers. You'll be able to apply for vouchers and get the vouchers so that your kids can go to whichever school you want. That's why they call this school choice. However, how do other voucher programs work? Well, at the time the moratorium started to end from the pandemic, we had people getting evicted, and a lot of those people had vouchers. The problem with that is that it may not be illegal in your state or city, state mostly, for the private school to reject vouchers from, say, black people or Latinos, people they don't want going to their schools. How on earth are we supposed to trust voucher programs unless it comes with that caveat, which is that the school cannot reject the voucher? Well, then what's going to happen as a result of that is that the schools are going to say that that's a violation of their constitutional rights. They're going to say something like that rejecting a certain type of kid goes against either their religious beliefs or their freedom of expression of whatever. You know what I mean? They'll do anything they can to keep segregation as part of this without just outright saying that it's segregation. So this has already been shown. Like I said, it's already been shown with housing vouchers. I see no reason to believe that it would be any different if they were allowed to dismantle public schools the way they want to. Me being on your left, I believe that every citizen has the right to an education, and that a better educated society leads to a society better informed to make decisions that are for the greater good, that are uh, constituting of building a better tomorrow for our children in our communities. That's what I would like to see. I believe in access. I don't believe that access to education should depend on how much money people make. But there are people who believe that. They believe that education. Uh, look at how many political commentators, specifically on the right, are suggesting that college is a scam. In a lot of ways, college is a scam, and we can discuss what's wrong with access to higher education. However, what you should find disturbing is that most of the people saying that have college degrees, oftentimes from Ivy League schools. So, why was it good enough for them? Well, it was good enough for them because of where they come from and what level of society they have achieved. They're not so against the idea of higher education that they rejected going that route themselves. They're just against it for you because you're a worker bee. That's where they want to keep you. That's what they want to happen. That's where they want to keep me. They want us all to be worker bees. And if denying your children an education guarantees that they'll be a worker bee for their donors, that's what they're going to do. That's what's behind it. Uh, you can do some deep digging yourself. You'll find out. Look at the people pushing this and look at who funds them. There's no other reason or no other excuse for it. Next thing you know, your children will be having to work jobs because they won't have any access to education at all. Once they work jobs, well, now the workforce is bolstered. How do we know this? History. That's where it was before. That's where it was before the public education system existed. So please keep that in mind. Support your local school districts. If you don't like what's going on at your local school districts, show up to the meetings. Show up and counteract the people who would rather dismantle it altogether. You don't like the idea that if kids weren't at school, there would be kids running around your streets 24 hours a day, tearing things up, causing a ruckus, because a lot of families depend on public education for childcare that keeps the kid in a place and actually feeds them. Well, again, get involved. That's what our political opposition are pushing. They're pushing their constituents to get involved, to essentially strong arm and take over school boards. If we don't want this to go away, we must resist it. Get involved. This has been Lou on your left.